And welcome once again to the Liberty Lounge. I'm Johnny B. On my left is Jared of Guns and Gadgets. He is pointing at the camera, and out in California, it is Anthony, the arms scholar. He has a Juris Doctorate degree and one handsome head of hair. Anthony, I want to open with a question. This has been circulating on the internet this week. The question is this: what is the bare minimum of gun ownership? And before I tell you what folks are saying, I just want to throw that at you and get your knee-jerk reaction for folks getting into it or walking through self-protection, homeowner. What is the bare minimum?
What do you mean bare minimum of how many guns you should have? One.
How
to be
many
a gun owner, you must have one.
How many or what? We're assuming that somebody's going to own a gun. What is the bare minimum?
It's funny. I literally had a friend text me yesterday, and he sent me a picture of an AR that he was gonna buy. It was like a Ruger AR 5.56, and someone was selling it in a package and all that stuff, and with some mags. And he's like, "Hey, is this a good price for what it is?" And I said, "Well, it depends." And they're like, "Should I buy it?" And I was like, "It depends. Like, what are you looking for?" And he's like, "Well, I only have a shotgun right now." He has like a pump shotgun. I don't even know what. I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, if you want an AR, it's not bad for the price they were asking. It was actually pretty cheap for what they were asking, what he was going to get with it. Bare minimum, usually what I recommend your first entry into the gun world, I say get a handgun. Get a semi-automatic handgun. I always recommend just a basic Glock 19. Just get a Glock. I mean, pretty basic girl. I mean, I was going to curse, but basic girl answer.
I think you were going to say basic bitch answer. Is that what you were going to say?
I'm trying to stay monetized within the first, but yes, basic bitch answer is a Glock 19 there. I mean, and it's something you can grow into. And then from there, yeah, I say, get a rifle, get an AR.
Jared, what's the basic bitch answer for you? Basic, somebody's going to own one. We already know they want a gun. What's the bare minimum of gun ownership?
I'd say start off with a pistol, because most of the time, if you're going to defend yourself, it's going to be personal distances, 3 to 5 yards. So a pistol will handle that well. I'd say a minimum of 9mm for the caliber. There are some 380 rounds that are kind of 9mm-ish in performance, but go with a 9 as a minimum. And if you're going to go basic bitch, something like a Glock or an M&P type pistol, which
Smith & Wesson,
very easy in the hand, very easy to control. But mid size, don't go full frame, don't go too compact because they're snappy. But minimum of that, and then for home, I prefer a rifle at home.
Always going for easy in the hand. The guy that started this stuff online, he said this. He said that everybody, if you can afford it and within, with all things being equal, you have to have a 9mm pistol. You have to have a shotgun. You have to have a 5.56 rifle, and you have to have a 22. And he said, and anything outside of that, we can't even have a conversation. And it got me down in my soul. I hate gatekeeping. I'm not a fan of gatekeeping. This is the only box that you can be in. You have to be this way. And I've said it, I think I said on here about a month ago that, a single mom living in an apartment in Connecticut behind enemy lines is in a very different situation than a rancher. I think to Anthony's immediate point, which is we're going to protect ourselves, and a 9mm handgun is a great start. That's a fantastic, just the idea of I'm going to take my self-preservation into my own hands. I think that's a huge first step. Anthony, does it really matter? Like, just buy something that works. When I go out to Thunder Ranch, one thing that Clint and Heidi always say, they don't care what you bring and they don't care what you own. It has to work. Is that enough, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the reliability of whatever you're buying is paramount, but I think a lot of it comes to the question of like why and the what of what you're doing. The reason why I ask my friends, like, what is your purpose? It's the reason why I always go to like a Glock 19 and a handgun first is because I think it is a multi-purpose type of firearm. With a handgun, it's something easy that you can use for home defense. And then I want you to grow into also concerning yourself about protecting yourself outside the home. And obviously you can't concealed carry an AR-15 or a shotgun. So that's why the handgun is first. I mean, you can, but a lot of people aren't going to be able to put that, in California, you can't put that on your permit. So it's like, I want people to be able to like move into concealed carry, concerning themselves with defending themselves outside of the home. So that's why I always recommend a handgun first, and a reliable handgun like a Glock. It's just stupid reliable. It's something you can modify as you go on, put red dots on it, do all the newfangled stuff that you want to do to it. But yeah, don't get so wrapped up with brands and all that. other than avoid Bear Creek Arsenal and some other companies.
What is the deal? What is going on with Bear Creek Arsenal? I remember a while back they got busted for having 38 Mexicans working for them illegally, and so they got appropriately busted for that because of nonsense. But what is going on today? Reno's been talking about him. Randy's been talking about him. There's a bunch of YouTubers. What the frick is going on with Bear Creek?
Quality control will start
Quality
there.
control.
Is that bad? Is it that bad?
Yeah, their stuff tends to stop running after a certain small amount of round count. It's just
Like one?
yeah, I think
200.
Well,
I think 200 rounds on some of these ARs, like the bolt carriers, are just completely falling apart. Firing pins are breaking. Gas blocks are coming out. I mean, it's just very low round counts for an AR. And
so it's that bad. Like I've seen the memes. I haven't clicked anything, and I just keep seeing Reno May out in California. He just keeps poking the bear. No pun intended.
Well, they seem to make like the Poverty Pony, look like an Anderson look like a high end rifle now, because they don't even make it through like 5 magazines.
But Anderson's run, and for people that don't know about the Poverty Pony, you have the expensive pony, which is the Colt, and that's called the Pony Tax. If you have a pony on the side of your AR and it says Colt, you're going to pay extra. But the Poverty Pony, for us people that are not fancy lawyers out in California, we have the gun called Anderson, as Anthony smirks. But
I literally have 2 Anderson lower builds in there.
My first gun was an Anderson. My first
AR build was an Anderson lower. And
but they run, don't they?
Oh yeah,
they run. There are still, I mean, with everything. And the reason why I said reliability is usually paramount. And most of the time you do pay for reliability in QC. There is a sliding scale where when you get beyond a certain point, is a Daniel Defense lower receiver so much better quality than like an Aero Precision low receiver? No, not really. They're all going to do the same. You can debate that maybe a Daniel upper is better quality and better QC than an Aero upper. I don't
qualify that. When you say a lower, do you mean just the lower without any parts? Or
I would say the low without any parts, because that's most of the time when people are buying like an Anderson lower, they're buying a stripped lower.
Right.
I have had some QC issues with one of my Anderson lowers where the trigger control like holes were not to spec. And so I had some pins coming out. So then I just had some anti-walk pins, put in, and no big deal. You work around it. And I've never had any issues with it after the fact. But you do pay. There is a sliding scale of what you pay for is what you get. And when you get so low to where you're paying $100 to $200 for a complete upper, bolt carrier, charging handle, and all that, you should get concerned about, okay, what corners did they cut to get this that low? And maybe should I instead save an extra $200 and go buy an Aero upper or something like that?
I've always said that Aero, and see what you guys think about this. Aero is Honda Civic. Like people ask me, "Hey Johnny, I need a first AR," and I'm sponsored by CMMG. But folks that are on a budget or have kids in school or kids in braces, they can't drop that kind of money, and maybe nor should they. Like for your first rifle on a budget, I just say go Aero. I'm not even affiliated with them, but they're a freaking Honda Civic. They're gonna run.
Yeah, most of the guns that we consider budget, they at least use quality internals, which have been tested and are going to run. Unlike how we started this off with Bear Creek Arsenal, apparently they must be getting their metallurgy from
China,
some guy on the back deck who is melting aluminum cans. It's just it's been funny to see all these guns failing. And our friend Randy, who did a review, he sent us a text at like 149 rounds and said it's running fine. And literally after he posted that, the next round, the rifle failed. It's just, do not, folks listening and watching, do not risk your lives on subpar stuff just to save a buck. Spend the extra $1 and know that if I need to use something to defend my wife, my kids, I can do it reliably.
CMMG.com.
Yeah, CMMG, yeah. I mean, and there are companies that do well. I mean, yes, sometimes you're paying for the brand name, but I guess the question for you guys is, if you were going to come to someone, maybe for their first AR build, because I literally got a friend from my text yesterday where he had that Ruger AR-556 and a very basic build with their MOE stuff on it, their Magpul stuff, and I think it still had like a carry handle on the top and all that. But if someone were to come to you and say, "Hey, I'm buying my first AR or I'm building my first AR," what reliability, like round count, would you expect out of that? And like, what price point would you point someone to? Like, hey, save up this much money, pay this much, see how much you shoot it, how much it's worth to you before you start jumping into big budget builds, that all of us have at this point because we're just so in this world.
Well, for me, I would say first off, unless you have gone to an armorer's class, I would recommend first timers to buy a rifle from somebody whose job it is to make sure everything is done right and they'll run. Because unless you know about head spacing and all that other proper gassing, you could run into issues. So, I mean, we could all build it. It's adult Legos, but I would tell somebody, put your trust in a company or someone who does that all day.
Yeah, if you're gonna have to trust your family's life to it, buy a gun from somebody that feeds their family by cranking those things down to spec. It's fun to build ARs. I've built a boatload. I always tell people, and guys get upset at me about this, but I'll say, make those your range guns. Build a fun one, but don't make it your all day, every day, unless you know what you're doing. Now, there's machinists that are listening to this right now that are like, I can build that, and they can. That's fine. But the question that Anthony posed is brand new gun owners, and they don't know how to build them. So yeah, just buy a.
I guess when I say like build, what I mean is a lot of people when they get into the entry level, they're gonna go to the local gun shop. Maybe they'll find a complete Anderson lower, and then they're gonna say, I like this lower, but I'm gonna buy this complete upper from Arrow, and so I'm gonna put this Arrow upper. And so there's degrees to building. Like when I put together my builds, I'm not doing the complete upper builds. Usually, I'm buying a complete Daniel Defense upper, a complete Sons of Liberty upper, or Geisley. I'm going to move, change the charging handle to a Radian. Maybe I'm going to put on a different muzzle device that I like. And I think a lot of people now, with so much information that we have, when people are getting into the gun game, they have so much information that they're going to build in that way. They're going to get a complete lower, change out the stock, maybe change out the grip, all these little pieces. I kind of agree with you guys that obviously I don't think a new gun owner should be. I mean, not obviously. If you have technique, you should, I guess, do whatever you want and do whatever you want, anyways. But you probably should just buy a complete upper to begin with. If you want to try your hand at building out a lower, that's pretty easy to do in general. Other than the buffer tube, making sure you have certain torque specs on that, and maybe. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame within itself, and the triggers and making sure which trigger you have. But that's what I'm thinking. And usually when I tell people, price point, I don't, maybe for your first AR build, I don't think you should be going anywhere near over $1,000.
No, you can get some quality stuff from, like you just said, like an Arrow upper and an Anderson lower. You can get in that ball game for $500-600 and have something that is going to run for several thousand rounds before you start to have any problems. That's a great place to start. Absolutely. If like you said, if you want to keep going after the fact, and then you can spring maybe $1,000 or even like for $1,500, you're going to get rifles that are, I mean, people will take to war, but nobody goes to war with an AR-15 for all the anti-gunners. But those are rifles, will be able to perform in all kinds of scenarios that you would ever face, whether at a range or whatever were to happen in the future.
I have these conversations with folks and as do y'all all the time. And people are like, Johnny, what should I do? I'm getting my first AR, and I will hit them with things that they don't know to ask. And I'll say, what's your ammo budget?
Yeah.
What's your optic budget? And I'll say, because they're like, well, I was looking at this BCM because John Lovell said to get the BCM. And I'm like, spend half that and put the rest of that budget towards ammo and maybe go take a one-day class somewhere. And yeah, like, Johnny, that's expensive. And I think it begs the question big time about budget. So many guys, and this has turned into a meme, so many guys will have 6 or 8 poverty ponies or 6 or 8 Palmetto State Armory PSAs, and they will lay down and die and cry if you say, maybe you should have one rifle that's quality. You should have one day of your year where you're just going and training with a professional. And guys will have $9,000 of Rugers in Palmetto State, and they would die before buying the one rifle. Anthony, what was the first one that you bought that was like, buy once, cry once, where you really bought something of quality that hurt you?
I think really when you jump from entry level firearms let's talk about like ARs because that's what we're on. when you jump from a basic arrow, or like I think I had a Stag Arms upper originally, and then I jumped to a BCM enhanced lightweight fluted barrel. That is one of my favorite training guns, and that thing just stinking works. And it has, and I'm not exaggerating, it probably has over 10,000 rounds through it at this point, and it just keeps going. I take it to all my training courses. That's the one I took out to the USCCA trip with us when we did their training courses. That's the one I take to my 3 training courses I do every single year. When you start jumping into the BCMs and you go above there, that's when you start to see the quality. Now, are you going to see a crazy jump from like a BCM to a Daniel? I have my own issues with Daniels. I think they're overgassed, but they're overgassed for a specific reason because they run all ammo all the time. I just don't like them because they're overgassed. I don't think when you're jumping to like Geisleys and all that, you're seeing it's a sliding scale. But yes, when you start getting into the BCMs, the Daniels, the Geisleys, the Sons of Liberties, all of that, you are getting what you pay for. And I think when you start jumping into the really bougie stuff, that's going to cost you thousands of dollars just for an upper. I don't think you're going to see the return on the investment. At that point, you're paying for brand. But that's when I made the jump from like the arrows to BCMs and all that. That's when I think I saw the quality and just the reliability of those things just keep running.
What was yours, Johnny, as far as your first quote unquote high quality rifle?
High quality rifle. When I got my first AR, it was, of course, was an Anderson. I got the Poverty Pony. I got the lower for $39 down at Widener's. And a lot of folks listening will know Widener's. It's the reloading place. It happens to be here. It's a national company. I went down to Widener's, got a $39 Anderson. And it was kind of pitiful. And that's just the way it is. I think for me, it's the first time this is not a commercial, but I actually paid for a CMMG rifle. And we went and picked up a pair last summer. And I think it's worth it. I really do. Not for CMG, but just as Anthony's saying, getting something of quality regardless of the brand, I think it's worth it.
I agree. The first one after, I kind of fell into that whole thing. Like I bought a bunch of lowers and built them out, and because I was an armorer, so I kind of knew what I was doing, and it was fun, pass the time. But the first one that I actually spent money on that like hurt in the wallet was I bought my Sig Virtus, the Sig Virtus Patrol. That thing.
It's peanut butter, isn't it?
It is. I love that gun. I took it to Valor Ridge, who we were hanging around with Reed Hendricks the night before last, which also I'll segue to that. Like, so optics, you mentioned an optic.
Yeah, I think, Jared, you're not to cut you off, but this is really important. Where you see a big jump in quality is always optics and triggers, in my opinion. When you change those, that's what, so not to cut you off, but that's
I'm going to jump on that too. I think for people listening, we're encouraging. I think I can encourage folks to buy something good and practice with it. The easiest way to make it even better is a trigger. And it's the first thing I learned how to do was to put triggers into it. Optics, Jared.
Well, optics obviously, will help you be better at what you're doing from various distances, depending on your eyesight. It can make you better as well. But we were sitting on the back porch with Reed Hendricks at his house, smoking some good cigars, through a thunderstorm, and it was misty, lightning, and Reed,
who's a teacher, he had to give us a teacher in the middle of a thunderstorm in the East Tennessee mountains. We're talking, it is 11 o'clock at night. The heavens have opened. It is lightning. It is thunder. We're underneath the front porch getting sprinkled on, trying to keep our cigars lit. And I'm like, is it time to go to bed? And then Reed puts on his teacher hat.
He goes, what kind of optic would you guys run? And if we were going to go right now and on a mission, what would you run? And we were all like, and he said, iron sights. Not only should everybody worry about being proficient at iron sights before you go to an optic, sometimes conditions will mandate or dictate rather that you don't even have an optic. So think of that too, young bucks out there who are worried about guns and throwing money at stuff. Be proficient at optics when you have them, but the iron sights I mean, people win wars with iron sights. People can still be great with just iron sights.
It's funny because we're like, we'll be texting and saying, hey, you want to go to the range today? Nah, it's raining. Let's go. Let's wait till tomorrow. The weather's going to be, we pick our training according to nice 72 degrees and sunny. And then Reed's like, it's raining cats and dogs. Noah just floated by. What optic would y'all choose tonight? And then he was talking about what the bull crap that would be in your LPVO on a night like that. And Anthony, we do the same thing. It seems like we only train on warm, sunny, low humidity days.
And then he asked if he wanted trigger time.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's that's an awesome point. And no build, in my opinion, no firearm is going to be good for all conditions. Now, does that mean I'm saying go have 57 rifles and 57 handguns for every little nuanced situation? No, but you'd want to make sure whatever, especially if that's like your go-to rifle, your go-to handgun, it can handle most situations. And I'm curious what your guys' perspective on this, because you talked about iron sights. I do put iron sights on all my rifles. Every single rifle I have iron sights on them or some version of an iron sight. Now, with a lot of my rifle builds, I do have risers on my optics, 193 Scalar Works or the 225 Unities, which do in some ways make iron sights hard. Awesome. Scalar Works came out with 193, I think, iron sights. So I put that on a lot of my rifles when I'm running those mounts. And this is a lot of nerd nuance stuff. The Unities have their own little peep sights built into there. So I always make sure I have a backup iron in some ways. And I know there's a lot of debate online about on some night vision guns. Well, if I have my irons and I have my optic of my red dot, and then I have my Viz laser, that's my primary source of optic, and then my backup. And there's a lot of debate online, and we're probably going to get comments because now we're jumping into a lot of weird nuance of people. Some people will swear by LPVOs versus, your red dots. You're just never going to solve all situations with any build. So just be thoughtful about what you have. And yes, go train out in the rain, because it will find a lot of holes in your gear. I did that recently, and there's a lot of holes in people's gear that they do not actually test out because they only go to the indoor range in perfect conditions.
Yeah, if it ain't raining, we ain't training. I was also one who put iron sights on everything except one time, and it bit me in the ass. We bought guns literally the day before we went out to Thunder Ranch. I threw a red dot on it. I threw a red dot on it, threw it in the case, checked it in, flew it up to Oregon. And what do you think happened? My red dot failed, and Clint Smith, the master, is behind me, and he smacked me in the head. Where's your iron sights? They're at home. Why don't you have iron sights? What are you going to do now? Yell at them? I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So you will need them at one point. Everything that is battery operated will fail. Anything that has glass can be broken. Always have iron sights as a backup.
So when I first got into it and really started taking my training seriously, I've shot guns my entire life, but it wasn't that many years ago when I actually tried to really level up. So the first thing that I learned how to level my rifle up was to add triggers, and it's super, super easy. I've got a Geisley or above in every single, and people have their opinions on triggers, but it's anything beyond mil spec. Mil specs are fine, they run, but that is a big level up. Now, my most recent change is I have moved my number one rifle from a big one, a big 16 or 17 incher, all the way down to I think 13 or 14, or maybe even 12. I've got several, but they're smaller. I've put everything smaller now so that I can work interior and clear my house now that I've moved in from an apartment into a house. Jared, what's your recent change that you've leveled yourself up on?
Yeah, rather than the 16-inch rifle, the 10.5 pistols, the 11.5 pistols, that has a more valid use inside of a home for clearing and stuff like that. And until you actually put yourself in those training scenarios and start whipping around corners or stuff like that, and it becomes very readily apparent when you have it, the benefit it is. I did the same. My high end stuff has gotten more user friendly, or it'll have a folder so that it can still be used in a smaller package.
Yeah, a full length rifle is starting to feel weird to me with my arm all the way out there. It feels super, super weird. Anthony, where are you at with moving a little bit smaller?
Well, he's in California. You guys can't have anything under a 75-inch barrel, right?
Yeah, that's
True. I know it's not 75 inches, but I know there's restrictions in California, but y'all can't have smaller ones at all.
16 inches. I mean, you can run pistols, but since we have specific laws with penal code, in Johnny's favorite word, penal, 30515. Yeah, you got excited, didn't you? Yeah, so we have the assault weapons ban, or the assault weapons ban in California, which talks about certain pistols. And then you can't have a detachable magazine. So then we have things like the Juggernaut tactical systems that break it out so you can, remove the magazine. So that's where you could have a shorter barrel length. But even that, like, you're not, and this is speaking directly to the California guys. And again, we're going to get comments about this. I do not recommend, I love Juggernaut tactical, but if you, as your primary home defense or self-defense rifle, if you're running something like a Juggernaut tactical or an AR maglock or something like that, they're just not reliable enough. I've seen plenty of guys go to training courses and they will have catastrophic malfunctions because of those things. I just recommend going featureless, and going featureless gives you a little bit more flexibility. Most of my rifles are 16-inch. I have some like the Sons of Liberty that are like the 14.5s and the 13.9s that are pin and welded to get to the 16 inches. Which does help. I mean, like Johnny said, it feels weird sometimes with the 16-inch, uppers, especially when you go to training courses and you're out there for 8 hours, 3 day, in a row, 8 hours, 3 days in a row. It wears on you. I'm thinking in my mind right now, the Nut and Fancy's size and weight constraints. It does play a big role in your training over days. So yes, shorter is better. If I could go shorter in some ways, I would love to experiment that. Maybe when I end up in a free state, I'll experiment a little bit more with certain lengths of rifles and pistol builds and stuff like that. If I could, I probably would go a little bit shorter than, the 13.9s and the 14.5 pin and welds. But that's kind of where I'm at. I am moving smaller in some ways.
Let me ask you this, from the outside looking into a free state. I know we pick on you a lot about that, but what's on your wish list? Like, what is the most tantalizing to you that if you were to move to a free state, what would be your first purchase?
It's hard. That's a very hard question to answer. I've always a lot of people stop me at shows and SHOT Show and all that stuff, or I'll talk to companies. And I always tell them, once I get to a free state, it'll be a thing to behold when I walk into a gun store, because so much money will be spent. There's a lot on my wish list. Probably I would move first to a handgun. I would buy staccatos and all that, because that's another one of those things where you do see, staccato, that sticker only cost Jared $5,000, everybody. But you do see a difference. There is a difference between a standard Glock and a staccato. The price point is worth it there. I've also seen staccatos fail though at training courses. I mean, they are finicky. They're race guns essentially. You got to make sure they're lubricated and they're clean. They don't like to be super dirty, but they are amazing handguns. They have amazing triggers. So yeah, staccatos, suppressor would probably be the next thing. Tack stamping and SBR would probably be the thing after that. Kind of all those big things that we have off the list. But I think if you really were to ask me, the first thing that would happen, fin grips and all that other nonsense is coming off like poof.
Instantly. Yep. Jared, you moved to a free state. I know that you are currently broke because you spent all the money after you moved here. I watched it from afar, but what was the big one for you when you got out of the Iron Curtain?
Suppressors. I went crazy. I want to give shit on it. I got five of them now.
And so far.
Yeah, so far. There'll be more. That was a big thing for me because it was the forbidden fruit in Massachusetts. You can't protect your hearing. That's terrible. That was the first, and I think the first gun I bought coming here was my PTR MP5 clone.
Nice. I think that's a good question for the viewers, especially those of y'all that are watching this on YouTube. What's on your wish list? Like, regardless of where you live, what is on your wish list? I love hearing what people are wanting to buy.
Yeah.
Got good news for you. Today's episode is brought to you by blackoutcoffee.com/liberty. 20% off your first order with that code Liberty. I started my day off today with blueberry crumble. Jared, how'd you start your day off today?
With the new Second Amendment Foundation roast.
Second Amendment Foundation roast. Anthony, how'd you start your day off today?
Waking up. No, 1776 is the coffee I always drink.
You can get 20% off your first order, code Liberty, blackoutcoffee.com/Liberty. Huge selection, whether you're K-Cups, whether you like it already ground, or you want beans, or you need the instant roast. They have a monster selection, blackoutcoffee.com/Liberty. All right, speaking of firearms, did y'all see this? And I know it's an easy walk down a short pier, I get it, to pick on Joe Biden. And it's almost like elder abuse at this point. They were so strong pro-Israel after this bullcrap started. But then yesterday, he's starting a ban on weapons from Israel or going to Israel. And now he's trying to go the other direction. And he's trying to do both. He is trying to do both, trying to support Israel and say no more weapons to Israel just to get those votes up north. Jared, are they as duplicitous as I think they are?
Dude, that's a good question, man. Everything they do it's extremely calculated. Even though I wouldn't recommend doing what they're doing, they do it for a reason. The Democrats always have that long-term game in mind. I don't know what they're thinking what's going to be the benefit of this, but yeah, I think it was definitely a bad move. But the key is what are they doing it for? There's definitely a reason we need to try to figure that out.
I am an Israeli weapon junkie. Like I've got an inordinate amount of IWI and IMI. I've got guns with IDF logos on the side. I have an IDF firearm that when I opened it up, it was very, very used. The barrel is so shot out that it is slick. Like the barrel has no more rifling in it. And when I opened it up, it had red sand in it from Israel. I thought it was cool. I got it from a guy who's an importer. Anthony, do you have any cool collectibles? I don't know what you're allowed to have out there, but anything cool, anything old, anything worn out, anything half destroyed, but you still like it?
Not anything specific from like Israel. I don't have any like IWIs or anything like that, but I do have an old M1 Grand from my my grandpa's brother. I don't know who it was, but they used it actually like in World War II. It's one of the airborne ones, which is really cool. So that's probably like the little family thing, heirloom thing that just sits there, and I just oogle at it a lot. That one's really, really cool. But yeah, I don't have anything like, I don't really have a lot of cool brand stuff. I know a lot of guys love foreign brands and they pay extra stuff for that. I mean, H&K boys love to pay an insane amount of money for their H&K stuff, which again comes to branding and all that. But yeah, I don't have anything like that. I'm not an IWA fanboy, if you're asking me that. No.
I have one Israeli gun, and it's my Bull Armory. My Bull Armory 5-inch, their 2011. It is amazing. If you guys and gals want to get in the 2011 game, if you haven't shot a Bull Armory, if you have the opportunity to do it somewhere, do it, because it's staccato but the price is not.
Walk us through that, because I have dabbled. I've never owned one, but I've played with your 2011s. A 2011. Tell the audience what a 2011 is. I know some of y'all are going to roll your eyes, but I think a lot of folks will find this helpful. What is a 2011? And two, give us some advice for getting into the 2011 game, because it's a whole other world.
Yeah, so 2011 is a 1911 platform, 2 World Wars.
2 World Wars.
But if you haven't shot a 1911, probably the best trigger in the handgun game, because it goes straight back, it's crisp, it's clean, it's repeatable. But it's just a double stack 9mm version is what a 2011 is. And 2011 is trademarked by Staccato, but that's what it's been called forever. Now they're called double stack 1911s. And if you're just getting into the game and you don't want to spend the car or house payment plus for a Staccato, there are like the Springfields, the Prodigies. You can get those for, not a lot of money. And they have a 4.25-inch version, which is concealed carryable. And they also have the full 5-inch version, which is more your standard 1911, 2011 size. But it's I held out forever. I never even had an interest to shoot one. And then when I did, it was game changing. And then when I started to shoot staccatos at different events, I mean, you were with me when I bought my first one. For years,
you got a really, really grumpy face. We were at an event, and the three of us were at an event.
Was that the first time you bought them? Was at the staccato booth at that event?
Yeah,
you bought like three of them, 2 or 3 of them. That was the first time.
We had gone over there to the staccato booth a couple times, and the three of us are there working. Like we are been hired to be there to work. And we have a lot of downtime. So we're just running around and pulling triggers on guns in random booths. And we kept easing back over to the staccato booth. And the funny thing about that show is you can actually purchase there. And so Jared kept disappearing and coming back and disappearing and coming back. And we're just jovial. We're having a good time. And all of a sudden you come up with the most serious, angry face. You're like, Johnny. And I was like, what? Come follow me. And I go back there and I follow you to the booth. And I'm like, what? I'm like, God, something's wrong. Like something's wrong. And you're like, what's the name of our FFL in Johnson City? I was like, volunteer FFL. I'm going to go change my pants now. And you had grumpy face. Then I saw the bill and I'm like, no, that's where the pain is from. Worth it, Jared?
Yeah. It's changed my shooting world. The grumpy face was because my wife said I could do it, which I was banking on her telling no, that's too much money for 2 guns. But when she said, you worked hard, you deserve it, it kind of ruined my day, but it made the day at the same time. So thank you, honey, and thank you, Staccato, for the hookup.
Yeah, and I think they got yours a little bit on the fast side. Anthony, is spending the money on the guns worth it? I mean, you said the rifles are certainly worth it, but how about these pistols? Is it worth it?
I don't know, because I've shot staccato, so I that's why I said the first thing I would probably buy would be a staccato. I think it is a completely different platform, the triggers, the way how flat they shoot, and they just they are worth it. There are certain firearms that are definitely worth it.
They're cheat codes.
They are cheat codes, and so they're not necessarily. They are cheat codes. I know we laugh about that a lot, but what they do is they just help you perform at the level that you are actually at. With some of my Glocks and some of the triggers, even though I have thousands of rounds through them, they are still Glock triggers. I run very basic setups for the most part. I don't change a lot of internals with my Glocks or my MMPs or anything like that. So they're stock triggers for the most part. Some of the Glocks, I run like a Radian Ramjet Afterburner, helps a little bit, but they're still Glocks. There's something about when you shoot like 2011s and the staccatos and all that. I've never shot a Prodigy, so I don't know if it's the same with the Prodigy or Bull Armory. But when I've shot staccatos or really well-tuned handguns, it makes me the shooter I am actually at. Sometimes with these other handguns, I just fall to the cap that gun will let me shoot at. I guess is the best analogy I can put out there.
What do you think about this? I recommend this, and this is just me. I'm just a guy from the internet, but I tell people your bedside gun, your concealed carry gun, the gun that you may have to fight with, don't monkey with it. Don't monkey with the internals. Do not monkey with the internals. If you want to monkey with a range gun, go have yourself a good time, polish and sand and lube and do all this stuff. But there's nothing wrong, because Anthony said, hey, I have, I'm basically run basic bitch Glocks. I think that's fantastic. Jared, am I wrong? If you're going to protect your family with it, stop monkeying with the internals because they're finicky.
Yeah, I don't mess around with any of my pistols, period. I've seen 2 instances throughout my career where somebody's firearm did not perform when they needed it for self-defense because they had ultimately done something to the gun. And James Yeager, when he was alive, told me, don't change anything. Glock made that gun to run the way it is, and you don't know more than the Glock people do. You don't know more than their engineers, so just leave it alone.
Range, not a problem at all. Anthony, you agree with that? Go monkey with anything if it's going to be a range toy or a fun gun.
I don't necessarily agree. What I don't agree with is, for the most part, when it comes to Glocks are Legos. I mean, it's not like those things are super well tuned. It's not like everything is spaced perfectly, where if you're going to change this pin or this, it's not going to change much. Um, with Glocks, what I don't usually change are the triggers. Like on all my carry guns, which are the Glocks, I don't mess with the triggers or anything like the firing pins or anything like that. Um, what I will modify is if I want to get a stipple job on the lower, if that makes it, get undercuts, I'll do that. If we're talking, obviously I'll throw lights on there. I run red dots on all of my defensive handguns, my carry handguns. So I will change the slide. I'll change the slide. If I want to run a different barrel like a Radian Ramjet Afterburner, I'll run that. We'll change out the iron sights on. So there are things I will modify. The only thing I do not touch on carry handguns is the Glock trigger. Glock triggers are okay. They operate fine. They get better with the more rounds you put through them. What I would recommend for everybody is, no matter what you change on a carry gun or any firearm, make sure you put enough rounds through that. And when I say enough rounds, I think you should shoot at a minimum like 1,500 rounds through a firearm before you are absolutely sure that you would trust that firearm with your life. If you just change something on it and put it in your safe and just say, "Oh, it's good," I think you're rolling the dice with your life. I mean, I literally just changed. I bought a Trijicon RCR, their new enclosed emitter thing. Red dot. I just bought that, put it on one of my Glocks, and I'm not going to trust that thing with my life. I'm not going to carry that thing unless I have 1,000+ rounds through that optic and make sure it won't die on me. Obviously, batteries still die, optics will die. Sometimes there's QC issues with the specific one you'll get. Even with red dots or something like that, make sure you test them before you trust your life with them.
Yeah, and I think I did a very poor job of saying don't monkey with your pistols, and that is specific, Anthony. What I meant is, don't monkey with the trigger and those internals. As soon as I get a Glock, those sights are coming up. There's nothing wrong with their sights; they're fine.
No, wait a second. Glock sights are the worst in the business.
I'm thinking of like somebody who they'll get
the job done. They will get the job done.
Barely afford their first Glock. They had to scrimp and save and sacrifice to get it. And they're like, well, it's not good enough. No, it's fine. Like a Glock is fine. However, for me, those sights are coming off on day one and straight to the trash. I'm great with the stippling. I'm going to add a light. I've got some that have new slides on them, but I will not touch the trigger. And that's specifically exactly where I am. Yeah. Is that right, Jared?
Yeah, that's what I meant when Jaeger told me that. It's like, don't mess with the internals because you don't know. Yeah. Chances are you don't know more than the people who built the gun. So that everything else is kind of like you throw an attachment on your car or something to make it look a little better, but not the internals. I'm not, tweaking around with the fuel rail.
Guys get upset about that. I mean, I'll mention on my channel, I'll say something like, for your main AR, make sure that somebody built it that builds those things for a living, that they do 100 a day and you've done 3 in your life. And I think that's important. Guys get upset, dude. They're like, oh no, I've got 75 rounds through mine. Not a problem.
Flawless. I've watched 12 videos. I can do this.
I think, again, that just comes down. I mean, none of the lowers I have were factory built. All of them I built out because, especially with California, the way that we have things, I got to set it up the way that I absolutely like, that's most comfortable for me to run it featureless, which includes putting in all the triggers and all that stuff. But again, with every single one of the lowers I have built, they have thousands of rounds through them at this point, to where I know that those things run. Just because you're throwing a Geisley trigger in it doesn't mean you did it the right way and it's going to operate the way that you want it to. Same thing with all the parts that you have in there. Make sure that if you're building something, you run the piss out of that, and that worst comes to worst, if that's the one thing you got to grab, it will work for you.
All right, now here comes the time where I'm going to put everybody on the spot. Complete total honesty. Do you guys have any Bear Creek Arsenal firearms? And if so, what do you have?
I don't. I won't. Olay.
I do not. To be honest, I wasn't even familiar with their brand until all the new drama started popping up, because that's just not. I was never. I don't know about you guys. I was never a super budget builder. I think I just got good advice coming into the game when I was first getting into firearms, where people were very much of the, buy once, cry once, try to build the best or buy or build the best quality. A lot of the guys said like, hey, Anderson lowers, strip lowers on their own, they'll get the job done. Pay the money for the trigger, pay the money for the upper, the bolt carrier group, all those, your optic, all those other things is where you put your money into. The stripped lower receiver in its own, they're made by like 3 manufacturers. And then the rest just comes down to like QC. So
Do you have one?
Yeah.
I have 4.
You have 4
not guns, but I have 4 10.5 pistol uppers with no BCGs that I only bought because they had a huge sale and I was still living behind the Iron Curtain in Mass. And I bought them for a rainy day, and I totally forgot they were there until I moved to Tennessee, and they were in the back, like covered in dust and cobwebs. But yeah, I still have them. Maybe we should do videos about just trying to make them die.
Or you should sell them to some unlucky sap. All right, what's the crappiest gun you guys own? Crappiest gun. I'm going to start.
I know.
I have this Mossberg shotgun that is from I don't know, from the early 90s, and it is whipped, and I love it. And it's from Walmart, and it's got, I don't even know what the camouflage pattern on it, some bull crap hillbilly Dollar General camouflage. It's a Mossberg shotgun. It goes bang. Jared, crappiest gun you own?
So if you remember back in the days, like the 80s, there were the pot metal guns, the Saturday night specials. I have a Lorson 25 caliber that was given to me by a buddy who just didn't want it. And I still can't, if I were to take it out, I could lube it up. I can't get one mag to go without at least 2 malfunctions. Piece of trash.
The Lorson, these things are absolute crap. 25 ACP, crappy gun, Anthony?
I have 2. Well, the first one that came to my mind immediately, and then I got one that's going to upset some people. The first one that immediately I was like, screw that gun. I don't even know why I still have it, is a Kel-Tec Sub 2000. I hate that gun. And even worse, it has the California compliant fin grip on that thing. That thing is a piece of trash. Now, it didn't have any malfunctions on it or anything like that, but just that is not a fun gun to shoot. It's not comfortable.
People going to be mad.
I don't like that. And the other one that will make people even more mad is when my dad passed, I got, and I don't know why, his XD9. That, again, that handgun.
Grip zone.
He would carry that thing, and I would make fun of him all the time. I just hate that. The trigger on that's horrible. That gun is not for me. But yeah, the Kel-Tec Sub 2000 is immediately one of those ones where I don't know why I still have that.
The funny thing about that, I know there's different models with different cladding on them, but the original Sub 2000, for folks that don't know it, Google Sub 2000. You might see a Subway sandwich, you might see a piece of crap gun, but the buffer that comes back is what your cheek welds directly onto, which is not too different than an AR, but it's 9mm, and it's just this. I can remember the first time I shot one of those things, it was thud, thud, thud. It's much, much easier to shoot a 308 out of an AR-10, and so much easier than a little 9mm. What a piece of crap.
Yeah, that thing. I thought it was like, because they're foldable, and then you don't really think, I know they have different risers for, you can still fold, I think Midway, and I bought one where you can still put the red dot on it and be able to fold it. But if you just were to put a red dot directly on it, you can't fold it. It's a plastic piece of garbage with metal and reciprocates. And I've never felt a 9mm be more punchy than in shooting this rifle platform. I don't know. I just hate that gun.
Yeah, it's not for me. And they sold the whiz out of those. We have a mutual friend, Trish, and that is her vehicle gun. And she is serious about her Sub 2000. What an utter piece of crap. And I know, folks, we love you. We know you're mad. The Kel-Tec folks, y'all love those things, and they're hot garbage. How about this? Another gun that folks love that are actually we all know that the Grip Zone is a piece of junk. What'd you say?
Grip Zone.
Grip Zone. We all know that those are crap. Even the guys that own those things, they're like, yeah, I know, but I kind of like it. And it's in 40 cal, and I'm a big FUD, and what do I do? But what is another gun that is beloved by a group but's actually a hot piece of garbage?
All right, I'll go out on a limb with this one because it's going to piss people off too. I had gone forever until probably 4 years ago at an event where I was finally able to shoot The Desert Eagle 50.
Oh, I remember this.
Rumble.
Yes.
We're
Tell
gonna
them this
rumble.
story.
I know you got one, but the first shot I took drew blood because the round comes back, hits you right ahead. No.
I'm gonna find it. I have the video. I'm gonna try to put it on this so they can see it.
You spend that kind of money, not only for the gun, but for the round. It needs to be better than it. It's a fun gun to shoot, but it's just going to shoot you right back in the face. So it's a big letdown for me personally.
For all of you grown men out there that can handle a Desert Eagle, I'm on your side. Desert Eagles are freaking awesome. You have replica on the side of your gun. I have .50. Anthony, what's another gun that just ticks people off when you call out the fact that it's a piece of crap?
I mean, I think I already did too. I don't know what other.
Desert Eagle.
Desert Eagles are fun to shoot. The ejection pattern is what Jared's pointing to. There are some of them that you shoot where the ejection pattern goes straight to your head. And I caught that on video, and it did leave a nice little shell casing size cut on his head when it was bleeding immediately, which was hilarious. I think that was at the first Gundy's in Texas.
Yeah. And then Guns and Gear, Mr. Guns and Gear, he first told me, don't do it. Don't shoot it. You don't want to.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got hit and turned around and saw the blood, he goes, I told you, and just walked away.
That is the most Guns and Gear thing ever. Like, because he knows he's like a prophet of what is about to happen. All right, last thing. What's up next for you guys in your gun collecting, your gun training, your gun buying, your gun purchasing in this space? What is coming up next? What is on your wish list? Maybe not specifically what you want to buy, but what do you want to get into? I know last year in 23, you got very much into AKs. What about the remainder of 24? Where are you headed?
I've been resisting this urge for a while because it's very expensive. I want to do something long range. Whether it's, I mean, I have a 6.5 Creedmoor A10, but I want to do something that's a legitimate chassis gun. I would love to go with a Barrett 50 cal. I would love to, but again, you know, where can I shoot it around here other than out in the woods, the mountains?
With the right attitude, you can shoot a Barrett anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something high power, long range.
Anthony, what's up next for you? What direction do you want to go?
I don't know. I'm not buying a lot right now. I think I'm at that point where I'm pretty content with what I have. I mean, obviously, if I was in a different state, there would be a lot of things I would buy. I'm just tweaking some stuff there. Like I said, I just got that Trijicon RCR, the new optic. I'm going to be testing that a lot, seeing if I like that. Yeah, nothing super new. I'm always keeping an eye out though for some consignment stuff. There have been a few staccatos that have popped up on consignment, so off roster stuff in California. But you're talking like some of them. I think there was like a staccato P that was going for like $6,500, and I was like, yeah.
Is that just a supply and demand thing? Why is that more than retail? Is it just because there's so few of them out there?
Yeah, it's supply and demand. You have to get it off roster, so you're getting it from a former or like an LEO who bought it and then is selling it on the secondary market, or someone who came out of state, comes in state, is selling it on the secondary market. So it's just purely supply and demand. It's one of the only ways you can get it. You know, some of those handguns now with the roster being a little bit more open because of the lawsuits and some of the micro stamping stuff being pulled. We're seeing a lot of other things come onto the market. That's probably going to be, to be honest, one of the next purchases is going to be getting some of the SIGs, maybe, you know, the Hellcat, and trying those out. But I'm not one of those guys. The second something comes onto the roster here in California, that I'm automatically got to go and buy it. Because I just have so many other guns that I'm shooting and testing all the time that I don't feel that I got to scratch that itch and like, oh, I got to get the newest thing that just hit, you know, California's market. I'm just not that guy.
I am in process of building, and I've already got the platform, but I don't have all the toys for it yet, but it should be done in the next few weeks. I'm moving into Subsonic 22 for the backyard. I have a few vermin and pests that are driving me crazy at my new place, and I am getting a can for it that is a dedicated can, and I'm moving into Subsonic. You play with Subsonic much?
Just at ranges, but now that I have some cans, I'm going to actually be investing in a case of Sub for 9. Anthony,
is that legal out in California? I know you got a little funky things, or does ammo really play into it as far as legalities?
There are some, like, you know, 50 BMG restrictions on ammo and stuff like that. I don't think there's any subsonic stuff, and I don't think a lot of guys are running a lot of subsonic stuff because, again, we don't have cans. So it's not one of those things that's like big on everybody's like, oh, I got to run this subsonic thing because it pairs well with my can and this specific build I have to run that round. It's just not a high priority on a lot of guys' list.
All right, final question. We're going to get you out of here on the Liberty Lounge. What is in your personal collection today? What's your favorite and why? Anthony, what's your favorite gun you got?
That's an impossible question.
They're all my children, and I love them equally,
except for the Keltec. I want to get rid of that one. It's hard. I mean, again, it's use case. Which ones? I'll just come with the heartfelt one. The one gun I will never sell, that will never leave my collection, is the AR that I built with my dad. My dad is now passed. So that is the AR I built with my dad that we rattle can spray painted. It's just a Stag Arms, very basic AR. I think it's got like a primary arms optic. But that's one that's, very true to my heart because it's the one gun I built with my dad. We painted together. We did all that. I'm never going to change anything on it. It's going to stay the way it is because sentimental value. So that's my easy way out of this without pissing people off.
Jared, favorite gun you own and why?
Well, I'm going to go with my pistol is my Staccato XC because that thing is a cheat code. I love that gun. It's fastest gun I have, flattest shooting gun I have. And my rifle is going to be the one you gave me, the Thunder Ranch rifle. They had stopped production years ago. He presented it to me for a gift, which I was honored and humbled. And then we had...
I am very generous, if nothing else.
You are. And then brought it to Thunder Ranch, and Clint Smith signed it.
And now you can't shoot it.
No, I can't do anything with it, but I love that gun.
You think you can get it like Cerakoted, like the signature?
I don't know, because my son has the same gun and Clint signed it in the same places, and it's going on the wall. He's never going to shoot it. I think just because of Clint's place in our lives and the location of the signatures, Anthony, I think they're just staying. I think it's just going to be, I just think it is the way it is. For me, favorite of all time, I remember years ago, the first time I ever saw a Jericho, and I was like, that seems pretty cool. And so I got one, and then I watched Space Cowboy Bebop. It's a cartoon, or I don't know if it's cartoon or if it's anime. It's a cartoon for adults, but he shoots that in that gun. And then I got the Cowboy Bebop grips on it. And it's just doggone cool. And I tell people, we'll go to the range, and I don't know if we've ever done it with that gun. I'll set the targets out at 100 yards, and they're like, all you brought was your Jericho. I was like, yeah, we're shooting at 100. And I shoot that thing not because I'm Annie Oakley. Like, it's just, it works at 100 yards. It's a lot of fun. And the face that people make when they hit steel at 100 yards with a pistol, it's just doggone cool. Great trigger out of the box. I freaking love it. I'll tell you what I also love is all of you people. And Anthony's got one more thing. Go.
One more thing just to make everybody mad. Let's put a nice bow on this. LPVO or red dots. Go. Johnny.
Red dots. And if you're anything else, you're wrong.
I've been red dot. I am now switching a few to LVPO, but yeah, I've been red dot.
Anthony.
Red dot. Superior.
LPVOs are no. I love them. I love them. We all should own them. We should train with them. We should practice with them. But no.
All right.
Red dot magnifier.
Here's another bow to really anger the people who are still watching and listening. It's silencer, not suppressor. Deal with it.
Patent. Look at the patent.
That is, and for people that don't know what we're talking about, like that really is silencer on the patent. It is called silencer because you're gonna have guys being like, it's actually suppressor. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a can. It's a muffler for your firearm. We're gonna muffle ourselves. We are at the end. However you found us, we're glad that you did. On behalf of the Arms Scholar Anthony, on behalf of Guns and Gadgets Jared, I'm Johnny B, and we'll see you soon.